Hello, people out there on a lovely Thursday. I hope you're having an enjoyable day. Anyone who's popping in here who has seen me on my lives here before will notice I've coming from a slightly different perspective. I had never really turned, I've always turned over this way with the wall of yarn behind me, but this is the window behind me, so it's nice and bright. And I'll step over here. I got a shelf with lots of little goodies. This is our goodie shelf, our knit blockers and cups and notebooks and little bits like that. So yeah, this is when you come in the side of the shop, this is what you're going to see up along this way. So welcome everyone into my shop here. It's a little bit chilly here. I'm actually finding I was sitting down upstairs for the last hour and a half listening to a talk, which was very good, but it means that I'm definitely feeling cold now, so I'm feeling the need to kind of jump around to warm myself up. So excuse me if I roll my hands together. I want to invite all of you who are doing the Brutach knit along to make sure you check your inboxes and Teachable, because the final clue has come out. I know there's a lot of you have reached the point where you finish the body and you're just dying to get it finished at this point. Unfortunately, this part is going to be nice and fast, because while the body was in Brioche, which is a little bit slower, the sleeves are in stockinette stitch. And it's in a bigger needle size, so they actually feel like they go super fast. You're much less likely to be on Sleeve Island with the Brutach knit along. So I'm just going to step over here so you can see here that the sleeves are picked up from the top down and they're knit in the round in stockinette stitch with the decreases worked on the bottom. Because it's drop shoulder, it means that particularly for larger sizes, because the bust is wider, you're going to be more likely to have the shoulder coming out a little bit further. So be very careful that you check your sleeve length as you're going along. So if you normally have a particular sleeve length, say for instance, often you might have like around 18 or 18.5 inches would be a fairly standard sleeve length from the underarm. For a lot of sizes, between 18 and 19 would be pretty typical, but that's assuming it's a set-in sleeve and it's starting up here. So with the drop shoulder, as the sizes get bigger, they're more likely to be sitting further out your arm. So if it starts here, you're cutting off this whole section here where you don't need a sleeve because it sits further out. So you might steam block or block gently the body of it first of all, so that you know how wide it's going to be. And so then when you're trying it on, you can be sure that the sleeve hits where you want it to, that it's not too short or too long. And with this type of construction, you're more likely to have it too long than too short. But because it's so easy to try on, you can adjust it as you're going. So if you need to adjust it where you need to make it a little bit shorter, but you still need all the decreases, then just take out some plain rounds in between the decrease rounds and you'll fly. Then the rest of it will be no problem, because it'll automatically move everything a little bit closer together. So very straightforward to do. And then the final thing you're going to do is the neck edging. I'll step back here again. You're just picking up stitches around the edge. I used a smaller needle size for that because I wanted to draw it in. The neck was quite open. So with the neck, it meant that by using the smaller needle size and then keeping the bind off nice and tight, it pulled it in and gave it a nice bit of cohesiveness. And so I just used again stockinette stitch with just a decrease in the middle here, so it creates a V neck. Like traditionally with V necks, they'd often be in 1x1 ribbing. You do 1x1 ribbing with just a decrease here. I quite liked it in stockinette stitch, and I found it lay quite flat, and it matched up with the sleeve, so it the whole thing kind of came together. You could of course do it in ribbing if you preferred. That was just my own personal preference. So if you're knitting on the Brutach knit along, or you've got any questions or any comments, pop them on up there, and I'll see if I can answer them if I can. Now, there may be a few of you out there as well curious to hear about the Celtic Knits Club 2022. I have a hard time saying 2022 because I can't quite believe that we're moving into that already. But yes, we really, really are. But the Celtic Knits Club 2022 is going to be going on pre-sale this Saturday night. So it'll be 8 o'clock on Saturday night. There will be a newsletter sent out with a little bit more details, but if you make sure to jump in at that time, you can pop in. Now, if you have been part of the Celtic Knits Club before, you'll know that it's pre-sale. It's only open for a few weeks, just in kind of from this point on until early December, and then it's closed. And then the shipments will be in March, May and July. Is that, yes, every three shipments, and they'll come also with digital content and with video workshops. They're aimed, it's giving it a broader title of Celtic Knits Clubs rather than Cable Knit Clubs, because sometimes kind of veer into more textured stitches and other things, but as you can probably guess, cables tends to be the mainstay of the whole thing behind it. I was talking a little bit with people what they liked about previous clubs, what they'd like to see changed, or what they want to make sure is there. And there was a few, there's a lot of really differing opinions. So I had, on one hand, people who were newer knitters who said they liked that it was so accessible because it built on one project to another. I had other experienced knitters that wanted to make sure there was enough challenge, that they were challenging themselves as they went along. Oh, there's a couple of questions up there. I'll pop them in a second there. So I was trying to figure out how to put the two together. And for the newer knitters, what I've started doing is we always start with the projects, because there's 3 working through: smaller project, medium-sized project, and a slightly bigger project, usually increasing difficulty as we go along. And for the first project this year, I was actually going to have 2 project options. One of them pretty straightforward, maybe with some very basic cables, and explaining it for people who, if you haven't done cables before, or you're nervous about cables, or you're newer to cables. And then a second project which has got a bit more complexity, and perhaps if you want to be challenged, we can just add a couple of more cable challenges in there. So everyone will get both of them, obviously, and there'd be yarn enough to make 2 of them. So if you're an experienced knitter, you might actually appreciate having a fast knit, so you could do that, and then also do the other one when you wanted to have a little bit more of a thinky pattern. So that will be the first one. And the goodies, we're going to have Python Charms is going to have the stitch markers again. Badly Made Books will once again do a diary for the first club installment. Then for each of the others, we'll have other bits in, which I'm not going to give all the secrets away. And we have something special coming in the final installment, because the final installment, the pattern options are going to be a wrap. So like a kind of stole wrap. So if you wanted something where you didn't want to do something as big as a blanket, but you don't want to do a garment, then that would be a good option for you. And then we're also going to have sweater options in different sizes. And something that's going to be new this time round is I've got Townhouse Yarns is going to take the Gloucester yarn, and some of the yarn for that final installment is going to be hand dyed by her. So it'll be the Gloucester yarn that we've been using up along, and we're going to have a little bit of hand dyed mixed in with it, which I think will be really interesting. So the design will combine the 2 together then. So that should be really fun. And before it goes too far in, I've got a couple of questions here coming in. Someone's asking for the knit along, is there a video how to weave in ends in brioche? There isn't specifically, but what I would, with brioche, what I actually end up doing very often is I'll go over in the direction I came, and then you can kind of go down the column on the wrong side, a bit like with ribbing, and up again. If it's joining in between, I actually always end up just doing felted joins, so there's no joins as I'm working through. The cast on and the bind offs or where you picked up stitches you're just going to work along the edges is the best way of doing that. Somebody else was saying, love my sweater. Oh, thank you. This is a super cozy one. This was a knit along from several years ago, actually, on Craftsy. It is Traveller's End, I think, because cable down the back and just top down with a big floppy collar. This one was in, I'm trying to remember, black sheep fibres, is that black? Anyway, but it's kind of a heavy mohair wool worsted, but it's really an iron weight. It's a heavy weight, so I think Studi Donegal would be a good one for this, but it's very cozy and good for this weather when it starts getting colder. I think that's the questions we have up there. Yes. So yeah, but anyway, I was talking about the Celtic Knits Club that's going to go on pre-sale this Saturday for anyone who's jumped in. A little bit different in terms of how the pre-sale works this time. Normally I have it sold as a single product, and then if people want to pay in installments, there was a separate app where you had the option of putting in installments. I'm actually making use this time of the fact that you can put subscription plans in on Shopify now. So while it's not truly a subscription, I'm using it to give it the option of, if we're coming up to Christmas, you don't want one big lump sum for a club, you can pay for the club in 3 installments or subscriptions, or alternatively, you can pay for it all together with a discount. So that's why it looks, if you take a look at the product when it goes up, it's going to show it as 2 subscription options. It's just really to give the ability to put a payment plan in place, but to make it nice and easy, and more importantly, have it all on the website, so you're not being redirected somewhere else to actually have a separate website. But the goodies are going to be new each time. We're having great fun actually pulling in a bunch of new products and testing them out and seeing what would work well with the Celtic Knits Club. So that's a whole lot of fun. And the other thing that we've got that is a little bit new than the last time is because we've now got Knit Hub, which is my forums, the actual dedicated forums. What we're going to end up having is you'll have an actual private space there where it's just going to be for the Knit Club members, and they can actually chat back and forth, and you can share how you're getting on with patterns and things like that. Kirsten, you're asking, will there be a digital option? There will be, but not immediately. So for now, I'm just got the actual physical club up for sale. When that closes, and in the new year, I will open up the digital option as well. It makes it a little cleaner and easier to make sure that I've got everything focused or dedicated at each particular set, because the digital, we won't be actually sending them out till March, so there's no big rush opening up the digital one. But I will also have the digital, which will come with videos and things just like last year. So if you've already got yarn or you don't want a full club, yeah, for sure it will be there, just not immediately. So because this just goes on pre-sale, so that I can make sure that I can order the stock and all of the rest of it for the club to make sure that they can go out in time. So I like being organized. I like having everything all ready to go, so that I know when the time comes, it's just a matter of packing them up and labeling them. One of these days I will introduce you all to Laura, but just not today, because she's not in the office today, but perhaps next week I'll get her to pop in and say hello when we're on the live. It's been really nice to have somebody working with me, because it's just, there's a lot more work than there used to be even a year ago, which is a good thing, but it does mean that you're pulled in a lot of different directions. So it's wonderful to be able to divide the load and everyone focus on their spaces. And I will next week. I'm going to introduce you to Laura, and I think we'll have a little tour of the shop space. Seasons Club's patterns came out last week. I know there's still a handful of people waiting for the yarn, so I'm going to wait until next week and I'll introduce you to the patterns from that. But everyone is really enjoying those patterns, which is great, and working with colour work. So I hope to see some of you perhaps this very soon in our Zoom meetup for that. And otherwise, if you're waiting for the Celtic Knits Club, Saturday night, 8 o'clock, come jump on the website, Stone Stitches. Bye everyone, have a good week or weekend.